Alright, well, figure it's due time to give another update. And before I go too in depth with showing what all I've gotten done, which isn't a whole lot, I'll show off a little car porn. In case y'all forgot what this looks like, I can't help but turn these on every time I get in the car. They're just beautiful to me. So on to the goods. Yeah. So I'm currently waiting on some goodies, but here we go. So I've run through the wizard and set it up. So it's got the bass tune for the cam setting and the cubic inch or displacement and timing and whatnot pushed to it. Right now I have the fuel pump relays pulled out so it won't trigger the fuel pump since the tank's empty. My water temp gauge is hooked up now. My old pressure gauge I'm waiting on a sensor for. That's why that light's not red anymore. It actually gets a signal. This one is just open, so it's showing no signal from it, so it's obviously triggering an alarm. My speedo is hooked up. My tach is hooked up. I'm hoping that the fact that it's showing a little bit of RPM is not a problem. And the fact that it doesn't do any kind of sweep. It actually pulls down a little bit and then goes back up, so maybe it's not an issue. Guess we'll find out later. Anyways, let me kill the key. Set this off to the side. And see if I can unplug this one-handed. Oh, I cannot. Hold, please. Alright, sorry about that. Fold my cables back out of the way. And move my gauge cluster so I don't damage it. Become very pissed off. So, on to the goods. Don't remember if I had showed this before, but all of my wiring is completely done now as far as the inside of the car. All of my runs are braided, heat shrunk, tied up under the dash. Got a ground location right here. Let's see. My Deutsch connectors are all wired up underneath for my bulkheads. My heated AC is wired up. The EFI over there is hooked up. One thing I didn't check, make sure that sucker's getting light. Yep. Lovely. I did go ahead and sand this out where there was a little bit of filler and just brushed on some epoxy that I had left over just so it wouldn't surface rust. It'll get sanded down and sprayed again. On to what I've done up here. Fuel lines, done. Distributor, mounted. New fancy cap. This, had to put it back. These temp gauges are thermistors. I don't know exactly how they work other than I know that they measure resistance. I'm assuming across these two wires. I was under the understanding that one was a 5-volt feed, and I thought the other one just measured voltage, and the temp inside the sensor, as it changes, would adjust the resistance load, therefore giving it a different voltage on this signal side. Thinking that, I figured it would work similar to a voltmeter where you could just measure the voltage from multiple sources. So I could just daisy chain off this one to my gauge and to the Holley. Apparently you cannot do that. That's why I guess I don't understand how they work, because what I was told was if you splice into it, it adjusts the resistance and therefore throws off the temp reading. So I had to run this one again with this Ghetto T. And well, that's about as far as I can go on advancing. Good thing it's timing controlled in this Holley. I can retard it a little ways. Granted, this I have to adjust this cable go into it so it'll turn, but I've got it turned to where The rotor is pointing like straight at the number 1 cylinder at 15 degrees before center. If I have to adjust it to retard it, then I'll have to pull the dizzy up out of release it from where it splines together with the gear, rotate it, put it back down. But this will have to do. And I actually had to turn this a little bit more counterclockwise to even get the damn thing in. So I'll definitely be fixing that come time to go to a 351 and putting an extra port somewhere. The shitty thing is, the place I was gonna stick it was like underneath here. There's no way that would work either. So I'd have to find a way to put one like up here somewhere. Anyways, on to the rest of it. I'm waiting on a plug for my oil pressure sensor here because I could not depin the plug that came with the gauge, which is where I got that autometer oil pressure sensor, because I want to splice on terminal, or not splice on, but I want to put terminals on these wires that are laser etched. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, they're labeled what they are. So I'd much rather use those, and they're a little bit bigger gauge than the little shitty ones that came on it. Still have to get my spark plugs ran. Still have to run my coil wire. I did run the feed for it right there. Jumps across right there, kind of shitty looking, but don't know what else to do with it. Shy of looping it back behind the masters and then feeding it up, because it has to go through this top one, because that's where I ran it, because I wasn't thinking. I was thinking during the setup that you had to set the throttle to wide open, but it did not go through that. So the only thing you had to set was the cubic inch, the cam, wide open throttle timing, and idle speed. I think that was it. The only wire I still have to do up here, other than obviously the power wire and ground to the engine and starter, is the starter solenoid. I'm waiting on some kind of insulation to put over this, because I'm pretty sure that nylon braid up here would not withstand the temp being that close to the exhaust. So I'm gonna put some fiberglass heat wrap over it. Still have to do the exhaust, obviously. And I still have to put my heat shroud over this fuel line, which I do have. It is this Earl's flame guard whatever stuff. It's fiberglass with like a silicone wrap over the top of it. Apparently this is amazing. It's also expensive. It's like $8-9 a foot. Luckily I don't need much of it. I just need to wrap this section and maybe some of the return line over here. I'm probably gonna wrap this one as well. And I probably won't put anything over this one, but I might. I don't know. Just depends. Wiring all of these were a pain. Was a pain. All this, that's all the feeds from the Sniper. These are the gauges that I don't have yet, or the sensors I don't have yet. I need to find out if this Holley can actually pick up boost pressure or not. I think you have to actually get a map sensor and run to it. So I'll have to get that. Originally I was planning fuel pressure and boost off of these, or map sensor or whatever, but I don't know if I'll actually run a fuel pressure gauge on the car. I will probably run an oil temp instead. That will come later when I go with my remote oil. I've got I think it's Improved Performance makes it. I think that's who it is. It's a little black, it's not a sandwich plate, but it's a little black remote plate that comes out to about like here. Has an in and out AN ORB fitting, and then it also has an 1/8 inch NPT that'll be the feed for the turbo. And then the remote oil will probably mount up here, more than likely, just for ease of access and away from everything. And it'll be a real short path to just go boop. But it has an inlet and outlet on either side, and you plug what you don't use. And it's a dual filter. And it is also got an oil fitting, so I can put an oil temp on that. And since it's not mounted off the block, I'm hoping it'll be fairly accurate. Still have to do the heater lines. Dreading that. Those don't actually have to be done. I guess I could always plug these for the time being, since I won't need the heater anytime soon. I probably actually will do that for the time being, is just put plugs on those. And then I'm waiting on my radiator and fans back on my fan shroud so I can run my coolant lines here and there for the water pump. I still have to do a whole lot of cleanup work, more or less, which involves tightening bolts, nuts, fittings, like these fuel lines, those, the ones down there, the feed line over here. I still have to pull all of the stuff on the inside of the firewall off and put this hush mat stuff that I got in. It came in super fast from Speedway. I guess I'll let y'all know how it does. I'm probably gonna leave it all be for the time being and run the car as is. I might even leave it be, unless I just end up with a lot of spare time after I get this thing operational. I might leave it as is until after cruising, and that way I can get a real feel for how much it helps keep the heat out of the car. Because I still want to do roll cage in the car, and I'd rather not put any matting down on the floor until I get that welded. That dog is losing her mind. I haven't done anything else back here other than this. Oh yeah. So I put my vent on. Ended up going this route. I decided against running into this because I didn't want to have to go through the hassle of buying extra hose, because my hose wouldn't reach all the way around to here that I had. It was just shy. I would have had to buy more AN hose. Then I didn't want to have to weld the bung on, and I couldn't figure out where I could put it where it'd be kind of out of sight and wouldn't look like shit. It'd probably end up being, it'd have to be up high, so when I put gas in it, it's not going to pour into the vent. So it would have had to be up here somewhere, and then it's just going to be a damn hose. So that was the most discreet. Later on, I'll probably end up putting something over this to give me a trunk floor that's removable. I'm not sure, because I kind of like the ability to pop my trunk and show off this, but at the same time I kind of want to cover up stuff and make it more, I guess, modern-ish. But anyways, this is just 90, a Ford loop to keep fuel from sloshing, and it's at the front of the tank obviously too, and it does have a rollover valve built in it, so that way when it sloshes, acceleration should keep it back. But it loops around, comes, I just did this little 90 fitting to give it a little tighter fit than using one of these, and just a straight. And then this is just bulkheaded. And I don't know if you can see that, but that is an AN filter, and I don't know if you can make out that brand on there, but those are, I think, $20–30 for these things. And what it is an AN fitting with like a brass breather, like what you would find on a rear end, and then it just has a filter over that. So it has the brass breather, and then it has a filter as well. And it is tucked away up against the car pretty tight, inside of the frame rail, protected from anything there, and I think it's high enough to where that tire's not going to throw shit up at it. I think that'll do nicely. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of wiring, along with the Holley stuff. The transmission stuff is all wired up as well. They're down here. I still have to hook them into the Deutsch connector. They go to this bottom one. Along with that, I have to do all of the engine bay accessory stuff, like headlights, all that shit. But yeah, that's it for now. I don't know anything else I need to brush over. I did order one other thing that I'm waiting on to come in, or I've ordered a couple things, but one thing I ordered was something to hopefully fix this throttle. It is an extension that puts the mount hole like up here. Shitty thing is, I don't know if this rod is gonna reach now. I might end up having to straighten it a bit to give it a little more length. But that should give me more throw than, you know, just that little bit. Hoping that fixes it. Anyways, that's all, guys. I don't know what the next video will bring. I'm a little ways from getting this thing started because, like I said, still got a whole lot of tightening things up, and still need to test the fuel lines, still need to wrap them. I just got a whole lot of tedious stuff to do before turning this thing over. The last thing I want to do is turn it over and then realize I forgot to tighten down something and cause me more work and more delay. So, oh yeah, one thing I did want to mention. Obviously this bonnet, like I went over before, but these Spectre, they sell them at AutoZone and so on. The 1 inch fixed my issue. So, filter fits on there with the 1 inch spacer, clears these fittings. If you're not running these front feeds or inlets for plans of going boost, you'll probably get away just fine using these rear ones without having to use a spacer. But if you're doing like me, you're running those front ones, 1 inch spacer fixes it, and filter fits no problem. I haven't put the hood on it, don't know if the hood clears the filter, but my main concern was making sure the filter itself fit. If I have to drop down to a shorter size filter, I will. Or if I have to go ahead and modify my hood. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys.